In Toulouse, Jonatan took the dance full time, and in the second part we will hear his thoughts on how to do that, as well as how to make everybody feel included when creating choreographies, and what the difference is between the Swedish and French dance scene, among other things. So then you moved to Toulouse. How come?
Well, how come? I met Anna like quite early on. Maybe the first time we danced together was in Snowball, I don't know, 2012, 2011.
Yeah.
And we liked to dance with each other, but it wasn't really much more like than that. And then we met in Herang and we danced a lot, we talked, and then over years we met in different events dancing together. And then at one time later on in Herang we talked about it, and we thought that it could be interesting to try to create something together.
Yeah.
We decided to meet and try to create something for, I think it was Lindeshock, the goal.
Like a performance or?
To do a routine for Lindeshock. Then we didn't really have time, but then we did it for Stomp Your Feet a little bit later. And it was probably November 2016, I suppose. And then we started to do different events together. So we met up at different events in Europe, and we were trying to practice, and we were creating small routines like 60-second showcases and stuff like this. But we were planning to go to ILHC the next year, and also Savoy Cup. So we wanted to create a showcase. So we did that, and then during the year I felt very good when I was here in Toulouse. It was like warm, and I remember distinctly being dancing outside in January in like 20 degrees. It's not always like this, I understood now, but sometimes it can be really, really nice weather even in the winter.
Yeah.
So yeah, I felt like I was a little bit tired of being a teacher, but it was a difficult step to take to say that I want to quit my job and I'm gonna try to go to Toulouse to only dance, you know. And I went here and I went all in and study French and dancing. But yeah, it maybe took like 1.5 years or something before we started to have gigs in the weekends.
Like teaching gigs.
Yeah, exactly. And that's really when you can live from this, because to only live from local classes, it's kind of difficult. Yeah. Even if it's easier here, I believe, than in Sweden. It's still difficult. Yeah. But yeah, we live from it now at 100%, and it's a lifestyle that is very, very different from the ordinary life that I lived before. Because now I'm free, like now during the day, for my practice, and then in the nights we teach. We teach every night, Monday to Thursday, and it's like 3 or 4 hours per night. So it's a lot of classes. The COVID, as you know, it kind of put an end to a lot of this. So we had a few gigs, maybe once a month now, since September, which I think is quite a good amount, because then you have some time to be home as well on the weekends. Because before the COVID, it started to be a little bit too much. Like almost every weekend, it was quite tiring. So I think for me, 1 or 2 weekends per month, that's enough. I really don't want to be away every weekend.
But how did you go from quitting your job and trying to earning your living through dancing to actually doing it? Do you have a good PR department or?
No, I mean, I'm terrible at everything around PR. I'm not the guy on social media. I mean, I'm super, super terrible at it, and I don't really want to be good at it either. Okay. But Anna is doing a lot of the Instagram and the page Facebook and stuff like this. So she's good at that. But we are not amazing at this at all. I mean, really not. And I think it was the way it was before the COVID, at least. Like if you do competition and you show that you can dance and you can perform, then people will see you and they get interested in you, because I mean, people want to organize events, and they try to think about people that can come, that are a bit fresh and new maybe, and that doesn't have the same price maybe as some names that are very common. So if you do competitions or if you do performances, people will see you and they will think about you and they will invite you. Okay. But I think it's not so important to win stuff, actually. I think it's just important to be seen, to be recognized as someone who can dance. winning or losing, it doesn't really matter so much, I think.
And yet you went in 2019 to ILHC and kicked my ass.
Yeah, that year at the ILHC was really, it was a good experience, because the other years in ILHC we were there alone,
Okay.
as a couple, only doing stuff ourselves.
Mhm.
But that year in ILHC we actually were there with a team, with people from different countries.
Yeah.
I don't really know I think it was Lee Maiden, who at the time lived in Madrid, who at Lindishock made some people come together around the table and was like, I want to create something with people from different places. And so she invited me and Anna, Sepp and Alexia, Sepp from Belgium, Alexia from Paris, Maria and Aurelien from Barcelona. And she was at the time dancing with a Spanish guy. Oh, I should know his name. I don't remember now. But yeah, so it was people, and then Vasya from Greece together with Alexei from Russia. So we were like a big team from many places. And again, like with the Norwegians, we were splitting up the song, like creating small parts from each section of the song, and then we met a few times at different places in Europe, and we were practicing together, and everybody had practicing at their place, from the videos.
Yeah.
But then when we met, we put it together and glue the parts together so that it works. It was I think it was pretty cool. We did a fast song, Apollo Jump, and it was a great experience to do it there, and we had good feedback, and it was a lot of fun to do it.
I can imagine. But that song it was like 240, 250, right?
It's 260 actually.
260, yeah.
Mm.
It still looked good.
Yeah, I mean, we had some parts where we danced half tempo and so on. Helps. But yeah, it was great.
Yeah, but you have to have, I imagine, a lot of communication so that when you make your own parts, you don't use the same aerial or same step or same idea.
Sure, but I think that was really cool with Mind the Beat, was that here everybody have their style more or less. We were all quite different, so it ended up quite naturally that the parts were different from each other, and also the section in the musics were quite different. So it went pretty well, I think, and because I think that this is much more difficult if you maybe are all in the same city. For example, if you would do it with Mess Around, maybe then people would create stuff that are more or less the same. But here, people were so different, so the parts were very different. And I think everybody in this group are very good dancers and talented, have very good ideas. Yeah, so it was very cool experience to work. And this was the best time, I think, that we did, because 1 year later we tried to do something for Savoy Cup, and that time we tried to meet more, but create together at a spot, and it was so much more difficult and so much more painful. And I think it's really cool to have these different parts, different ideas, and then you meet and then you try to do something with the ideas, rather than always be together as a group, because the group process of creating with many people at the same time, it is difficult. So I think it's better to have some clear ideas already before you meet. So it's a tips to everybody who wants to do a routine with big groups. Don't come like empty-handed to the rehearsal. It's gonna be a pain.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have the same experience.
Well, our first routine in Mess Around that I created, it was me and Elin and Lisa and Charlie. The four of us said, let's do a routine to Bugle Call Rag. Great song. We had never choreographed anything. We just met and started spitballing ideas. And we looked at clips and we had ideas, but it was a very tedious process and it took a lot of time. But we had a lot of time, so it worked. But that's kind of like how Mess Around works. It takes a lot of time, but everybody feels involved.
But this is the thing that I think sometimes when you are a group, especially maybe a little bit bigger, there is always one or two person who maybe has a more natural tendency to lead. And what can happen sometimes is that some voices will not really be heard in the process of creating when you're all together. So that was kind of nice to share the responsibility first. Like that, you kind of have to take care of everybody's opinion a little bit more, because when you're all together, it's easy that maybe someone will have a voice that speaks louder and some people will take many steps back, and maybe they don't say that they are not feeling fine, but they are not really feeling fine, maybe because they are not taking their voice is not taken care of in the same way. So I think it's difficult with this, the structure of organization in a group.
Indeed.
I remember the first time I was trying to create the routine, that was with Victoria. We never succeeded, but I was so locked by the music, because the music did bam bam and I wanted to do bam bam.
Yeah.
And then there was another bam bam somewhere, and I was like never having time to dance, because we tried to choreograph to the music, but like speed down, like I would say slow down, and it becomes impossible to dance. And I think still that's like a piège en français. It's a trap that we can very easily fall into when we try to choreograph it, that we try to follow the music too much, and if you do that, there is no dancing anymore. It's just mimicking, you know. And I think that's a difficult part in this process, that you still need to have your voice and not only mimicking the music. You have to have movement and things that is floating around, and then sometimes you have some moment with the music, you know. And we actually, with Anna, when we create, we actually sometimes create without music, just creating phrases that make sense, that has a good flow, and then we think about where in this song this could work, and then we do it there. Maybe feel no, it's not good here, then we move it somewhere else, and then we adapt it if we feel that it needs to be adapted. It's also a way, if you get stuck, to try to create without the music. It can help.
Yeah, could you tell us about an event or a performance where nothing went as you had planned?
I think I rarely have this like super big blackout, you know, where nothing goes as planned. But I remember our first ILHC, when we did a showcase in the preliminaries. We had one moment that was very close to what we did in the classic. So in the brain, it was kind of the same. And it was like a moment when we went down and then we looked up at each other. And in this moment, we both didn't know what to do. We had no idea what is the next thing we are doing in this routine, because it was very close to what we did in the other routine. And then we just improvised, you know. It was like maybe for 3-4-8, something that was a little bit weird, you know. And then at one point we came back to the routine.
You came back to it. That's impressive.
I think it's also helped me, this experience, because it also makes it like it's not the end of the world if you forget something. You can always come back to it. And it is like my music teacher said when I was playing violin. It was the same thing. Like if you get lost, just try to come back. Just try to come back.
That's nice.
And have that as a, also when you practice, trying to have that as a habit, that if you do a mistake, don't stop and restart. Just try to work on getting back to it. It is important. It is a good tip, because I think it's also about the habits.
Yeah. I just interviewed Patrick Petron, and he has a question for you.
Okay.
What is it like to dance in France compared to Sweden?
Oh, interesting question.
Indeed.
Well, when I arrived here and I started teaching, the cultural difference is quite big. Because in Sweden, many people come to classes. I also did it when I started, like in a t-shirt, in a functional material, and like jogging pants and a big bottle of water, a towel, you know.
Yeah.
They are ready to go sport. It's not at all like this here.
Okay.
People come in their regular clothes, maybe even like really nice clothes sometimes, and people arrive late. Like I remember we were supposed to start our class and people were coming the first 10 minutes, they were coming, you know. So you can't expect everyone to be there at time. But in Sweden, in a more way, you can. People are usually there in time. So, and for me, since the classes were only like 55 minutes, it was kind of strange to arrive like that. And then also here in France, and I think it's maybe a legacy of the swing jammers at the time, and like the way people were dancing, especially before in France, is that especially the older crowd, they are always asking, whatever you do, they always ask, how do you lead that?
Yeah.
And even if it is a thing that is about personal style, like you do a different way of footwork when you do something, they always ask, how do you lead that? And it's like, it's so crazy that because that question is always there. And I think it's a little less in Sweden, but it's a lot about lead and following. And I think teaching style wise, it's much more authoritarian.
Yeah.
It's like the teacher knows you have a good posture, you know what to do, like you listen to me, I'm the boss. And the Swedish style of teaching, I think, is much more different, but also because our school system is so totally different. Like it's more democratic the way we have been grown up in school.
Yeah.
I mean, on good and bad, but I think we Swedes, you are much more like, but this is the way that you could do it, but it's okay to do it like that as well. And I'm not really sure, but
Yeah.
so it is interesting.
Nice.
But in France, as a Swedish person, you have a lot of plus, because Sweden is seen a little bit like the utopia in the world by many people, and also many times also in a way that is not really, we don't really deserve this,
No.
But it is really seen like the Nordic countries is some sort of paradise, a little bit cold paradise, but still a paradise.
The next person I'm going to interview is Johanna Stillman, and I was wondering if you have a question for her.
Oh, sure. They were actually the couple that when I started, I remember, I mean, even before I knew Lindy Hop, I remember I saw a video of them dancing Lindy Hop, and I was like, wow, that is cool. That is pretty amazing. And they are so nice.
Yeah.
I actually one time had the pleasure of teaching with her, because they were here in Toulouse supposed to teach, but he got sick, so they needed a replacement.
What a
And I was
bad luck.
yeah. It was great. They are really nice.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been dancing so long,
Yeah.
right? And I guess I would be interested in knowing how they can find motivation to continue and to continue to be creative year after year, and how they find the happiness,
Yeah.
in the dancing. Because I think when you dance for a long time, maybe in the same kind of dance and so on, at some point maybe you come to a point where it could be, you think that, I mean, you feel you're reproducing your same ideas, the same kind of, you're stuck in a hamster wheel or something. And I think it could be very interesting to see how they think about these things. So how do they have any tips for people? How do they keep being so good?
Is there something else you would like to add to this interview?
I really think that as teachers of Lindy Hop, I think it's important that we all try to go back a little bit to the sources, and that we also not only try to dance like people around us today, but that we also look at old clips and we try to see what the Lindy Hop was once in the time. And then we try to have an essence of that in that we do what we do as well, that we try to interpret the dance. Exactly, because I think that's what we are doing actually. We're interpreting an old style, and it will be different from people to people, but I think it's important to base it in something that is raw and like the thing that is actually was. Unfortunately, we don't have that much material, but there is a lot of videos still that you can find on YouTube, like Elsa Poppin and like a lot of clips with Al Means and Leon James we have, and there is so many people that are doing a great job in sharing this kind of material as well. And I think it's very good for us to try to do it. And I think copying is the first step, and then you have to try to find your way of doing it. And I mean, for Savoy Cup, we did this vintage routine. It was such a pleasure to try to copy someone else and try to dance that way. And I think after that, I have even more, how you say, like, I think it takes such a long time to be really good at this dance, because it takes a lot of time for the body to adapt to this music and this way of moving, that that we have to be humble about it, that it's not taking it. You can't be a great Lindy hopper if you're dancing 3 years. It is impossible. It will take more time to have this relaxedness, this sure, how you say, like when you're really in time, you know,
Yeah.
you're really in time with everything you do, and you have a certainty about what you're doing. You're not like fumbling around. It's exactly like with music. Like if it's good, it is good, and if it's yes outside, it's not. You don't want to listen to it. So I think we should all try to do that. Like try to go back and look at it, even if it's not like maybe a style that talk to us. I think it's important to have that as a base if we want to teach this dance. And also, I think I would like to say that, and this is a question for you, maybe.
Okay.
Is it still dancing if we are moving without the music?
Well, I am a person who likes definitions, and what I've heard about the definition of the word dance is
Yeah, that's interesting.
movement to music. So per definition, no. But I would say that a lot of people think and act like dancing without music is still dancing, and I think so too. So I think for all practical intents and purposes, yes, but definition-wise, no.
Yeah, because I it's just really a thing that I think like is a trap when we are teaching this dance that is so easy to get into because we want to over explain the dance, you know.
Yeah.
So we maybe end up, especially if a class is 1 hour, maybe we let the students dance for 3 minutes as a whole, and they are trying to do the moves or whatever without music. And I think it's so important to connect the movement to the groove of the music and what the music is, and actually try to let people dance as much as possible with music if you want them to be dancers or not just movers, you know.
Yeah.
And it is something that I have, it has come to me the more and more as I also start to play music. But I really think it's super important to give students time to dance to the music and let the movement talk and not try to explain the movements too much, because I think everybody is capable of looking and translating and perform it. It just takes some more time for some people, you know. And we sometimes maybe think that words can do more than they actually can, because words is like from the movement to the word there's a translation, and then from the word to someone's mind it's a translation. It's better to have it as direct as possible. And I remember, you know, being at the gymnasieidrottshögskolan, GIH, you know, the sports teaching, they were all into like show, try, and I think it's so important to try to do that. Yeah. And so I really would urge people to try to let people dance to music, because I'm also sometimes guilty, but I really try to have music as a big part of the classes.
Yeah, as a teacher, I totally agree. There is something to practice dancing without music. Maybe, and like learning new moves, that's one thing. But for me and Lisa, let's just dance without music for 10 minutes to feel each other more. It's also.
But I think for me that's more like of having an internalized music, you know.
Yeah, of course.
Because you can dance without music, but it's still gonna
hear
be
it.
some sort of music. Yeah, exactly, inside of you. And like the movements in a way is kind of a music.
Yeah.
So I think also it's good to practice without music, but maybe if you're even like thinking about the song at the same time, it could be very helpful. Or like, or not. But like the movements that we do, they also has some relationship to the structure of the music, you know. So I suppose it is still dancing, but I think it's really important to have the connection to the music in this style of dancing. We are not doing contemporary where we try to push the limits of what is dancing.
No, I know, but my answer was based on that.
Yeah, I understand.
Where do you teach now, and how can people come in contact with you?
Well, we teach in Toulouse, so if you live in Toulouse, you can take classes with us. If not, it's a bit different. But like, yeah, we are doing weekends, and we want to teach. So you're free to contact us whenever you want if you like what we do. If you want to contact us, we have an email. It's Anna and Jonatan without an H troff@gmail.com, and that's where we answer people.
Okay.
And we have a Facebook page as well, Anna and Jonatan. So that's the way. If you want to have us, that's the way to contact us.
And final question: have you used Troff, and what do you think about that?
Yeah, that was in my head when I was talking about the creative part with groups.
Yeah.
Yes, I have used Troff, this great program that you have been done. And I was kind of, I guess, an early adapter of that. I used it quite early on when you showed it to me. And with Mind the Beat, I was called the tech guy because I was the one taking care of the music and the cueing. If you don't know Troff, it's like a program where you can organize the song. You can put like small markers on different sections of the music where you can write small notes. And this is very helpful if you want to practice a section over and over again. And you can also put in a small pause in between so it's easy to practice. And it was very helpful when we practice because it keeps that you continue to push it. You say, we're going to do this section 10 times. And we just going to have like 10 seconds break in between. And like this, you really grind it into you. And that's really good for that. So yeah, I recommend it. It's a great one.
Thank you very much. And it's been great fun talking to you, Jonatan.
Yeah, it's a bit unorganized like my brain is, but it's been nice.
Thanks for watching. If you find Jonatan's story interesting, please like and subscribe. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. Happy training!